You've been in the gym, you've done the fasting, you've cleaned up your diet, and you're still looking for that edge, the thing that compounds everything else you're already doing. You're not here for beginner advice. You're not here for eat your vegetables content. You're here because at 45, 52, 61, whatever your number is, you've realized that your body doesn't forgive neglect the way it did at 25, and you've decided to do something about it. That's not average. Most men your age are just watching the decline and calling it inevitable. You're not. So let's talk about something that most men completely overlook. Not because it's obscure, but because it looks too simple to take seriously. Ginger. Used for over 4,000 years in traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic practice, not as a flavor, as a pharmacological tool. And before you scroll past thinking this is soft content, hear me out. Because the compounds inside this root, gingerols, shogaols, zingerone, interact directly with the same inflammatory pathways, insulin signaling cascades, and brain chemistry that every serious longevity researcher is focused on right now. We're talking about the biological systems that govern how fast you age, how clearly you think, how efficiently your metabolism runs, and yes, how your hormonal and vascular health holds up as the decades accumulate. Your body is fighting battles right now that you can't feel yet. Chronic inflammation rewriting your cellular instructions. Oxidative stress accelerating your biological age faster than your calendar age. Blood sugar instability quietly degrading your metabolic machinery. These aren't dramatic emergencies. They're slow erosions, the kind that don't show up until they've already cost you years. So does daily ginger actually move the needle on any of this? Or is this ancient hype dressed up in modern language? Stay with me, because the research is more interesting than you'd expect. The moment ginger enters your system, it doesn't wait to be processed politely. Gingerol immediately triggers the production of saliva and gastric juices, flipping your digestive system from standby into active mode. Think of your gut as a high-performance engine. If fuel isn't being processed efficiently, everything downstream suffers. Power drops, recovery slows, mental clarity dips. Ginger accelerates gastric emptying, meaning food clears your stomach more completely and efficiently. Less fermentation, less bloating, less of that post-meal heaviness that tanks your afternoon focus and training performance. For the men doing structured eating windows, whether that's 16-8, 18-6, or OMAD, this matters. When you break your fast, you want maximum nutrient absorption, not a sluggish gut processing a backlog. Ginger optimizes that window. It also acts as a natural antispasmodic, relaxing the smooth muscles of your digestive tract. This is the actual mechanism behind its anti-nausea effects, not folklore, not placebo. Neuromuscular regulation. Your gut has its own nervous system, and ginger communicates with it directly. Now here's where the real leverage begins. Simultaneously, ginger starts inhibiting two enzymes you need to know: COX-2 and 5-lipoxygenase. These are the production managers of your body's inflammatory response. When they're overactive, and in men over 40 eating in the modern food environment, they almost always are, they flood your system with inflammatory compounds that degrade joint tissue, impair vascular function, and cloud cognitive performance. Less enzyme activity means less systemic inflammation, not just in your gut, everywhere. This is why men who add ginger consistently report joint pain easing, migraines dropping in frequency, and a general reduction in that low-grade physical heaviness that accumulates after years of hard training or desk work. Then your immune system gets involved. And here's the reframe. You don't need your immune system louder, you need it smarter. Gingerols and shogaols increase natural killer cell activity, your body's first responder cells that identify and neutralize threats before they replicate. They stimulate macrophages, the cleanup crew that clears cellular debris and pathogens. Shogaol specifically has shown protective effects against viral cell damage in research settings. That constant rundown feeling when you're almost getting sick, that low-grade immune strain that costs you training days and mental sharpness, daily ginger may reduce that baseline burden by keeping your immune system sharp and efficient rather than perpetually reactive. But the transformation that matters most to men focused on long-term performance. That starts when ginger reaches your metabolism and your brain. Here's a clinical number worth anchoring to. 500 milligrams of ginger powder, 3 times daily for 40 days, significantly reduced post-meal blood glucose levels in human participants. 40 days. Less than 6 weeks to measurably shift one of the most critical metabolic processes in your body. Here's the mechanism in plain terms. Think of insulin as a key and your muscle cells as locked doors. When those locks get stiff, insulin resistance, glucose can't enter efficiently. It builds up in circulation instead of being used for energy or stored in muscle where you want it. Your pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. Over time, this exhausts the system and accelerates metabolic aging. Ginger works on multiple levels simultaneously. It improves insulin sensitivity, loosening those locks. It stimulates the pancreas to secrete insulin more efficiently. And because chronic inflammation is a primary driver of insulin resistance, ginger's anti-inflammatory action attacks the upstream cause, not just the downstream symptom. For men tracking their metabolic health, fasting glucose, HbA1c, insulin levels, this is worth paying attention to. Fewer blood sugar crashes means more stable energy across your eating window, better cognitive performance in the fasted state, and less metabolic wear accumulating over years. Now let's talk about cancer research. Carefully, because this area demands precision, not hype. Laboratory studies have shown ginger's bioactive compounds can inhibit prostate cancer cell growth, reduce breast tumor size in animal models, and decrease metastasis potential in controlled settings. In one prostate cancer study, 3 grams of powdered ginger daily was associated with a reduction in risk markers by up to 40%. These are real findings. They are not a cure. What they establish is that ginger influences cellular growth pathways and oxidative stress, the 2 foundational conditions in which cancer finds fertile ground. It may alter the biological terrain. That distinction matters. Then there's oxidative stress, the process that governs how fast your cells age, regardless of what the calendar says. Free radicals damage DNA, degrade cellular membranes, and accelerate every chronic disease process in the book. Ginger increases your body's antioxidant enzyme activity while suppressing the inflammatory compounds free radicals exploit. Picture a slow-burning fire around your cells. Not dramatic, just constant. Every day, slightly more damage. Ginger is a suppression system, not instant, completely cumulative. And here's what stopped researchers. Ginger extract has been shown in laboratory studies to inhibit amyloid beta formation by up to 80%. Amyloid beta plaques are the protein deposits that define Alzheimer's pathology, the physical architecture of cognitive decline. 80% inhibition. Ginger also protects catalase and glutathione peroxidase, the brain's internal antioxidant maintenance crew. When those enzymes degrade, neurodegeneration accelerates. When they're protected, the brain holds its structural integrity longer. You're building the habits today that protect the version of you that exists 20 years from now. The question is whether you're thinking that far ahead. Here's something the longevity community underestimates. Chronic systemic inflammation doesn't stay contained to your joints or your gut lining. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It disrupts neurotransmitter synthesis. It elevates baseline cortisol. It creates the neurological conditions you experience as mental fog, low drive, irritability, and that background fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to fully resolve. Ginger's anti-inflammatory action, the same mechanism calming your joints and protecting your gut, reduces that systemic neurological burden, not as a sedative, as a regulator. Men who've been fasting consistently already know the mental clarity that comes from reduced metabolic inflammation. Daily ginger may extend and deepen that effect. On the respiratory side, gingerol relaxes the smooth muscles surrounding your airways, reducing airway swelling and mucus production. For men dealing with low-grade respiratory inflammation, particularly after decades of urban air exposure or high-intensity training, this means less resistance, easier recovery breathing, and reduced inflammatory burden on the lungs. Now, Risk management, because intelligent use beats reckless enthusiasm every time. Ginger is pharmacologically active. That's its power, and that power demands respect. In high doses, it can trigger heartburn, particularly if you have pre-existing acid sensitivity. Because it improves insulin sensitivity and stimulates secretion, men managing blood sugar with medication need to monitor carefully. The combination can push levels lower than intended. Ginger has blood-thinning properties, meaning anyone on anticoagulants like warfarin needs medical guidance before adding therapeutic doses. Gallstones are another contraindication at high doses. The goal isn't maximum ginger. The goal is consistent, appropriate, daily ginger, and letting consistency compound over time the way your training does. Zoom all the way out. What are we actually looking at when we assess daily ginger against the backdrop of everything a serious, health-focused man is already doing? We're looking at a single daily habit that simultaneously supports digestive efficiency, immune intelligence, blood sugar regulation, inflammatory load reduction, oxidative stress control, cellular aging deceleration, cognitive protection, and respiratory function. That's not a spice. That's a systemic intervention with a 4,000-year track record and a growing body of modern research behind it. The men in this audience already understand compound interest better than most. You've seen it in your fasting results. You've seen it in your training. Small, consistent inputs, accumulated over months and years, rewriting your baseline. Ginger works the same way. Tiny reductions in inflammation that you won't notice on day 1, but will absolutely feel in year 3. Tiny improvements in insulin response that shift your metabolic trajectory over a decade. Tiny antioxidant boosts quietly slowing the cellular aging you can't see in a mirror, but will feel in your energy, your cognition, your resilience. At 50, 55, 60, your margin for metabolic error is smaller than it was. But your capacity for intelligent optimization is higher than it's ever been. You're not hoping for good health, you're engineering it. And the men who understand that the most powerful tools are often the most ordinary ones, those are the men who are still performing at 70 while everyone around them is managing decline. Your body is running on the inputs you give it, every day, without exception. The question has never been whether ginger is worth it. The question is whether you respect the compound effect enough to stay consistent. Start today. Stay consistent. Let biology do the rest.